for he had an only daughter about 12 years of age, and she was dying. As Jesus went, the people pressed round him, and a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years and had spent all her living upon physicians, and could not be healed by anyone, came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her flow of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the multitude surround you and press upon you, and you say, 'Who touched me?' But Jesus said, 'Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone forth from me.' And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had been immediately healed. And Jesus said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace.' While Jesus was speaking, a man from the ruler's house came and said, 'Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore.' But Jesus, on hearing this, answered him, 'Do not fear, only believe, and she will be well.' And when Jesus came to the house, he permitted no one to enter with him, except Peter and James and John, and the father and mother of the child. And all were weeping and bewailing her. But Jesus said, 'Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping.' And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, Jesus called, saying, 'Child, arise.' And her spirit returned, and she got up at once. And Jesus directed that something should be given her to eat. And her parents were amazed. But he charged them to tell no one what had happened. This morning, as we find ourselves approaching that great American feast of Halloween. Now, I know some of you have, for many years now, the Lamberts come to mind in particularly, have Christified even this kind of ghoulish time of year, by lighting candles out front and having saints and icons and things there when people would come. I have to wonder how many people, when they would visit the Lambert home, went away really remembering, that Halloween, because of the different, let's say, flavor of it. But this morning we hear some remarkable things. First we hear in the epistle of St. Paul having a mystical experience. Of him describing, as a man who he knew being taken up to a third heaven, and how he didn't know if he was in his body or out of his body. Ooh. And then in this morning's gospel lesson, we get to hear some really amazing things happen, right? Jesus is just walking along, and this very sick woman who could find no relief from her disease merely touches the hem of his garment. That's where we get that tradition. When the priest goes by, you might see some people who might reach out and touch the vestment of the priest when he goes on the great entrance. And it is in that tradition, that little practice, that we remember this woman who had the faith that if she just reached out, something would happen, and something did happen. This sickness that had plagued her, for most of her life, was gone, was removed, was lifted, and Jesus felt the energy go out from him. And then we have, topping it all off, this story of the girl, the 12-year-old girl who died, and who was brought back from the dead by the energy of Jesus' touch. And sometimes we're a little skittish about using that word because it can sound a little bit new agey. But that's one of those funny little things about these things that we call spiritual, because we really don't know how to speak about them. And we know, as science keeps going, going deeper and deeper into the mystery of existence itself, energy becomes a very appropriate word, because we start to find out that what seems, so solid, so real, so material, does not really turn out to be all that solid, real, and material. So what is it that keeps us, for the most part, from experiencing the kinds of things that we heard today? Well, we hear the word faith used, and it's a very big one. And it's a word that we need to be cognizant of and remembering almost all the time. Again, this is also an interesting time of year, because we get excited when holidays come. And even in our church school teaching, we had a conversation about how we should present to some of the children what this is about. And there's a certain level of even stress about it. That we want to make sure that we give the right message or teach a lesson. But it's an odd sort of thing, because Halloween comes, and how many hours do people really spend with it? Well, if you go by some of the houses in the neighborhood, people really do almost center their lives on Halloween. But for most of us, it's going to be a few hours a year. A few hours a year, for the most part, are not what we need to worry about. We need not to be so, let's say, caught up and sucked into these things, holidays when they come around, whether they be church holidays or others. Because we get excited at Christmas time too, and we'll take note of being very particular to make sure that we participate in those holy days in a good fashion also. But we find out that even there, it ends up, while we Orthodox, certainly with our fasting and the numbers of services there, still, most of our time is not going to be taken up in a churchly setting. And most of our time is where we get to do the very simple work of bringing God into our lives and clearing away the junk that gets in the way of us being able to experience, on the one hand, what the woman experienced in her healing, on the other hand, what St. Paul experienced in his mystical, out-of-body kind of journey, and even the miracle of the raising of the dead. And so, it's an odd sort of thing, because, if the culture's done anything for us, it has taken what began for the American experience as rugged individualism, and it's turned it into each of us really being imperially king in our own little empires of our minds, basically. And so each of us walk around seeing ourselves as the center of everything. And we go around and we most naturally, again, because we are in there, we go around as though it is our job to judge everything and everyone, everywhere, like all the time. And all you need to do is spend a little bit of time working on that one to see how real that is. And the whole of the spiritual life is really only about that. It's about us moving from a place where we are one with God. We can look at the story of our Genesis, right? That we start out in pretty good shape. At the end of the account, however we would view of creation, we find that God and man are in perfect harmony. There is no separation. There is no line of demarcation. There's no wall between them. And then something happens. And it starts with something as simple as Adam doing something on his own. Even doing something on his own that was prescribed against, that he was warned against. But if Adam, right from the start, is so easily misguided, lied to, and gullible enough, because in his innocence he had no experience of demons and devils and snakes and things like that. We're in that same kind of dilemma, except that we are so far down the road that what was one step out of paradise for Adam, for us, ends up being, oh man, we are far, far away. But when we look at Jesus, we're to see what it is that we're called to, and we're called to realize and to believe and have faith in the reality that who I am is that, not this. And then get to work on trying to achieve that. And who we get to be our guides and to be our examples are the saints. And so in every walk of life, we see them given to us as what it would look like for people in those states of life to move toward the fallen man and death to the new man in Christ, little Christians, little Christs. But see, our dilemma once again, as part of a very modern and materialistic culture, is that we believe that virtually not at all. And not because we don't want to, but because we have been so thoroughly conditioned that there's hardly a crack in us to be able to contemplate the possibility, as I refer to with some frequency, that I'm just plain wrong. That my approach to things, that all I have to do is watch how I move through life and how everything, I mean, from the colors and things like clothes and how people carry themselves and how the choir sings and how the ushers are ushering and all this, that is one of the good reasons why for us Orthodox clergy to be facing this way. Because there's much less distractions when we're looking up at the face of Jesus, especially as we get here. It's a beautiful thing to behold. You know, and so even as as a quick sign, you know, any of you who find yourselves really distracted because you're in the back of the church and there's so much going on in front of you that you find yourself just kind of here and there and everywhere instead of up there, you might want to move to the front of the church a little more. There's just less to see. But when we look at Christ, when we see him, when we see what happens with him, when we know that this power emanates from him, that's what we are made for. We are to be like that, and we see that once again, not magically presented, but we see it in the lives of the saints, many of whom showed up that way, who glowed with the uncreated light, who levitated when they were celebrating divine liturgies, things like that. And those are not some kind of phantasmagorical, strange things that somehow defy the nature or the rules of nature. No, they actually give us access and show us what it really looks like when someone is in touch with God. So Christ himself, being in touch with God perfectly, having no sin, no barriers, no junk in there that would get in the way, is a perfect conduit of the grace and the energy and the Spirit of God, his Father. He and his Father are one, and that gets expressed in everything he does. On the other hand, we look to some of the other characters that we find in the whole of the biblical lesson. If we're looking at the Old Testament, you'll probably find many examples. But some of the better ones for us include Judas and include the thieves on the cross, as so nicely and clearly given to us of examples of people who were at the other end of the scale, but at least one of whom was able to let go of all of that in a moment. You know, a liturgical hymn of the church says that in one moment you granted paradise to the thief. And again, that was not because the thief was lucky, although he was fortunate to be where he was at that moment, obviously. But it was to show that all of the things of our lives, no matter what, those things that block our seeing, those things that get in the way, and it's all really of how well we've constructed this, me, who I am, how I view myself, my self-image, the one I want projected into the people around me, that can be very solid. And it also is very inhuman. Because if Christ is our archetype, if he is our, not even just an archetype, but I mean, we can speak of him Old Testamentally as the archetype, but then he becomes one of us. Exactly, perfectly God and perfectly man, and showing us what it looks like to be human, which means to become God. Now, if we're going to consider even the smallest possibility that that is so, I think if we're honest, we're going to have to go, are you kidding me? You know? Are you really? That's what you're telling us? That really, 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 those words, theosis, deification, however we speak of it, is really what I am made for? And if, again, a little crack in the solidity of how certain I am that I know myself can be found, then in there, maybe something can begin to grow. And what begins to grow, again, it ends up being kind of ridiculously simple because we are so out of touch, is that something like confession. That most aspect that all of us know about, have participated in, but have, for the most part, continued to use the sacrament as we did when we were 9, 10 years old. You know, which is not to express in any real way a maturation and a growth. Because it is there that the work of unloading the junk, moving aside the things that get between me and God happens. That I get to tell the truth, that I get to look hard, that I get to be honest, that I get to be humble. And what does humility mean? It means just to be who we are. It's a very simple thing. But it doesn't require going anywhere, and it doesn't require attaining anything. In fact, just the opposite. It requires unburdening ourselves, of letting go of all those things that we think are so really who we are, and giving them to God, or at least just letting them go. So as we hear this morning's gospel lesson, we might want to ponder a little bit, and we hear the epistle lesson. What would it look like? What would it look like for me to take seriously that what St. Paul was experiencing, and what the woman who touched Jesus, and what the householder who called him to the house to heal his then dead daughter, what would it look like for me to place myself in relationship to Christ in that kind of a way? What would it look like for me to take seriously the things that I've mentioned today in terms of, again, we have a church so beautifully illumined with the saints who are present with us. What would it look like for me to take seriously that that's what I'm made for? And most of us, if we're a little older, ought to be looking at it a little bit more from the purview of the good thief. You know, that, yeah, we're not going to have another 40, 50 years to kind of fix it and get it right here. But just maybe I can be ready to say, Lord, remember me. It's a mess in here. You know, I haven't done a very good job. You know, I haven't allowed you to shine through me. I haven't taken advantage of the beauty and the glory of the good news and the life that you bring me. But it's never too late. But what we find between the two, you know, is that basically we're afraid. And we are so ready and willing to just sell out for whatever our acceptable level of fear is, and to pretend that we can just kind of cruise along at this level. And we can. Again, there's no doubt that we can do that because we're made that way. We can pretty much do what we want to do with these things. But why? Why, if we find ourselves part of the one holy Catholic and Orthodox Church, we're having been baptized and chrismated and given all these promises of most amazing things here and now, at any moment that I can have a glimpse, you know, or a willingness to let go just for a second. Why do I so adamantly refuse? And I know for myself what the answer is for me. You know, it's because I'm uncomfortable. You know, and I'm very satisfied with the way things are. And as I think I might have described not that long ago, just like I'm not going to jump out of an airplane, you know, I find it very difficult to jump into the unknown reality of God. You know, but that's really, you know, to my great detriment. You know, and someday I will have to make that jump. And that's what we're trying to do, folks. We're trying to anticipate that day of our last breath and start to get to work on what's really real. You know, those of us, again, who are old enough, football season. Football season used to mean a lot to many of us, right? It doesn't anymore for a lot of us. We've noticed that, doesn't really pay off. It's not quite as exciting. It doesn't create the same energy and fun that it used to. And you pick your territory like that. You pick what your activities are that have been, at points in your life, so satisfying, maybe even dominating. It could be a beautiful, wonderful career. You know, it could be just your own, I don't know, good health and stature, you know, in your own person or in your family and neighborhood. All of these things, if we haven't noticed, they are fading. And what a beautiful lesson that is for us, if we can pay attention to it. And it's not something to just be saddened by, because at first it could be a little bit sad, you know, when our bodies start to go and our minds aren't as sharp as they used to be. But if we get what it's tipping us off to, If we can get what that's about and where it's pointing us, man, thank God, that I don't have the same body that was healthy, in a certain way 30 or 40 years ago, because it was teaching me nothing good for me. So let's pray that as we are here today and approaching this feast of Halloween, and as we're hearing these readings of wondrous kinds of things, magical kinds of things, and mystical kinds of things flowing from the good news and from the gospel message, let us pray that we may take those things as seriously as we can. Do something about it. Not because it's Halloween, but because every moment of our life is our opportunity for that moment for God to say to us, today you'll be with me in paradise, even while we're here in this flesh and bones. So, to the glory of God and to our salvation, may we pray for the motivation and the energy and the desire to seek after these things in a more heartfelt manner than we have for this thing in our lives. Amen.